It's paying tax, it's paying jobs, it's creating industry. This thing is going to exist anyway, as you say. So if you can have somebody in there that's going to give them a quality light or something else like that that's then more energy efficient, if there can be that innovation so people can spend that money on the crop, they're going to be less likely can afford to spend the money on the lights and the equipment to set up the crop and run the crop. They're less likely to then steal the electric. They're less likely to commit other criminality. So again,
exactly.
I can't see there being the problem. For all, there has been a couple of shops that have been caught up in like collective stings, as it were. Basically, they've found massive amounts of equipment at huge industrial grow sites with effectively receipts gone back to the business, and they've got tied up, and that will get settled in court. And I think ultimately, hopefully, a rational mindset will prevail, and the individuals, the proprietors of that business, unless they physically were growing it themselves, which I can't speak of, but if they weren't, which I don't think they were, I'm not alleging that, then they shouldn't be caught up in that criminality. That's no different than, like you said, a kid stabs another kid, but he bought the knife from Tesco.
Yeah, we served him.
We are saving the kid. Yeah, actually, okay, maybe that's different because it's age restricted, but because it would then be on the head of actually who got it, they could then be fined and lose their job. So there is an accountability there. So
I'm a mank. We call everyone a kid. You can be 48-year-old.
With that, yeah, with that, exactly that. To clarify, then a younger person stabbing another younger person, if they were of age and they bought that knife, where they bought their knife, that isn't the issue. Do you know what I mean? And that's, I think the problem again, it comes down to sort of a class thing, and I think that's
well,
what
we've had a lot of the shops. Sorry, again, interrupt. We're going to have this a lot through this episode, I promise. But a lot of the shops where they've had like young lads who's just working there, it's the first job out of school. Feds have come in, buddy, police, we don't have feds, have come in and said, obviously, I need to have a talk with you down the station and that, because they've found their fingerprints on lights, found their fingerprints on pots, on bags of soil. And the argument will always be sort of like, is it on the fixtures and fittings? Is it on plug sockets and light switches? Because if not, I sold them that shit. That's, you go to a lot of the shops now and they've got the gloves on. Mm-hmm. But then again, that all just comes down to like conditioning. Like you say, like grow shops, hydro shops, it should be a nice community place. But a lot of the time, it feels dark and dingy because we're conditioned to feel dark and dingy.
Well, yeah, I make this joke all the time that the biggest purchaser per capita of black bin bags, quality heavy duty bin bags in the world is the hydro industry. They go through fucking thousands. Everything is bagged to leave the building because nobody wants, and most companies have got smart to it with the boxing and the packaging and whatever else that you can't quite tell what it is. But then a lot of other companies, because they're operating in markets where they can be so bold and open, or because they are marketed as separate from cannabis, then we'll leave the branding in such a way that, yeah, you have to cover that to move it from A to B. And it's you say it's that kind of the culture that is created there as a consequence of this. And that, as you said, the banking became a huge problem. So they were talking, I think, initially 60-40, but I think it's now going higher. So they want 60 digital sales, like transactions, and then 40 cash.
Yeah, the last I heard was 70-30, but I think they're trying to get it to like 90-10. I was in a shop the other day and he actually got a phone call from the bank saying, you put in a lot of cash in, is there any way you can start to take more card payments? And I sort of switched. I was like, did they not see that? I get that that's just a bird on the phone. She's got a family to pay for and all that. She's just doing a job. But you've got to see that you're part of some bigger thing to remove cash and like... Obviously, we can get it. That's a whole other episode, but
I mean, I don't know. We can sidebar. You know, you've watched enough of these to know we can fucking sidebar. I don't personally think it's. I think there is something towards these centralized digital currencies, but several countries have backed out of this and pulled down their models. I think the volatility. Sorry, 2 seconds. The volatility within the market. And what we know from what we learned in 2008, it was liquid cash, mostly drug dealer money that kept the world afloat. We were all, it was government bailouts and IOU. No. It was drug money. Everybody pulled out the shit from under their mattresses, and that went back into markets. People started buying in assets and having to move shit around, and countries and banking institutions and financial institutions were kind of like, we need to, I don't care, where did that come? Okay, yeah, we got money now, it's okay, it's fine. They didn't care where it fucking came from.
Suddenly we were afloat. It's cool.
Look at HSBC and everything that happened there. They took, God, I'm going to mess the number. It was over 100 billion that they ended up fucking financing through. So 10, no, sorry, it's about hard, 10 billion. I always get, when I try and read the zeros in my head, it gets a bit mental. It was a large number of money. HSBC got done for laundering, and basically they had to pay a fine of like 10 million, 15 million or something. So they paid a small fine, but made all of this profit, and they were told, like, don't do it again. And they're like, we're sorry, we won't work with the cartels anymore. But yeah, I think
Got
that,
Iceland jailed their bankers.
and that's the way it should have gone around the fucking world. Like, Jesus Christ. I mean, obviously, Northern Rock up here, like, they were giving 110% mortgages and shit, and they were just setting people up to fail. It was all part of this. It's just the middle and upper class robbing the lower class. That's all I ever see with this. And I think the reason that the institution, the British institution especially, hates home growing as a concept is lower class people growing their way out of poverty.
Well, that's what kills me now.
Pisses them off.
UK are the largest producer and exporter of cannabis, and it is not.
Probably not anymore, I don't think. We were obviously for many, many years.
Yeah, well, that's so. All during this time, and all the facilities that are going up and down the UK and stuff like that, and it's not kids off the estate. Do you get what I mean? Where you've mentioned before, sort of in New York, the first round of licenses, they literally said if you've been jailed for a cannabis offence and you've got someone in your family that owns a business, you get a license because you was wrongly prosecuted. And that's the thing, and that's like where you say home growing, it does sort of put the power into the hands of us poverty stricken. Because the thing is as well, we wouldn't even be doing it to try and pull ourselves out of the trenches. We'd be doing it to sort of make out of smoke and just make sure that my daughter's brown is paid for.
We don't have we don't have the scalability in the same way. Look, home growing, if then by that definition is in your home, most of us lot, because of things like bedroom taxes and all the other things that have happened in the class warfare that was intensified under austerity under Cameron and fucking George Osborne, literally anything that we would make would just put us onto the surface. We'd be able to tread water again and breathe for a little bit. That's all it would do. It would literally, as I keep advocating for, it would pay for children's meals, their school uniform. Do you know what I mean? It would pay for childcare, for dentistry. It would pay for all of these things that we look around and see everybody is just fucked with because people have to line up and go, no, food is the everyday. These bills or else they take my house. And when they keep rising and rising, you need something to put into that. So like you said, during lockdown, so many people, dealers couldn't get to spaces. The industrial growers couldn't get access quite often to their shit because they couldn't hide in the crowds anymore in big cities. They were obvious. So loads of people went into micro production, and everyone started to like you said, the summer of love, or that like honeymoon hydro period. And a lot of people became self-sufficient. Like I said, that they'll grow enough so that they don't pay for it themselves. That's enough for them. All their other money that they make in other ways can then pay for all their other bills. And like you said, this help a few friends out, which means that they can then go, I can finally replace my shoes after the first time in 3 years. Do you know, people look at cannabis dealers and the image they have in their head is like Rolex, Benz, stupid money off all the Cali packs. And yes, that's a certain class of dealer. But Dave, my mate Dave, I don't have a mate Dave. I do wish I did have a mate Dave, but as I always talk about Dave the grower down the road, who isn't actually down the road, but Dave, that kind of guy, you know what I mean? He's literally maybe he has a holiday once a year or whatever. There's an expense, but everything there is tax. It's not luxury goods. It's not pushing up the stock price of Louis Vuitton. What's the combination company now? Louis Vuitton, Hennessy, and fucking Moët or Moët Hennessy. I can't remember what order it is. That's like the biggest company in the world, and they've got the biggest capture because of what happened during lockdowns. All the rich people couldn't go to fucking restaurants, or they couldn't spend their money, so they just kept making more and more and more, and the governments kept giving them more and more and more money. So they just bought more and more stuff, which guess what? Made them more and more fucking money. And whose money was that? As Gary Stevens pointed out, it was our money.
That's what always gets me. Everything that they say is government funded. It's your funded. It's my funded. It's our funded.
And because they avoid tax, they're getting it from us. This is the thing where I said, what is wrong with the hydro industry? What is wrong with people home growing? The average home grower pays tax on, if they're doing it, again, I say it properly, and I clarify that language to mean with no other criminality. They're paying tax on their electric, on their water, on their feeds, on their fucking seeds, on their initial equipment. Do you know they pay more tax than Google, than Amazon, than Microsoft, than most of these huge corporations that are, again, just asset stripping? Whereas Dave down the road, like I said, if Michael or whoever comes and knocks and goes, oh, Dave, mate, I don't get paid till next week, but my back's acting. There you go, mate. Bit of ticky, bit of chucky. Do you know what I mean? Not by violence, not by force, not by anything else, not by coercion. There would just be that open space. We had a wonderful thing at the peak of it up here in the north in Durham, Well, there's probably a collective of like 15 people that all grew and nobody sold to each other because no one fucking needed to. Someone would just go, I'm having a shortfall, ring a mate and go, oh, I'll lend you 2 ounces. I'll lend you an
Yeah,
ounce.
box it off when
And so
yours
there
comes
was no
down.
money in
And
that
bang it.
economy. Do you know
Nice.
what I mean? Occasionally there would, if somebody was like, shit, my car broke down, they'd then either ring one of the mates in that circle and they'd happily either buy off them or help them connect to somebody. So then the money came
Yeah.
back into that collect. And that's what I want to see is the autonomous collectives where we're using cannabis, yes, frankly, as a cash crop.